On this Christmas Day, as families gather around tables, candles are lit, and famous Christmas carols return once more, we find ourselves pausing at the end of such a turbulent year for Europe and the world. Christmas arrives not only as a celebration, but as an invitation to reflect on hope, solidarity, and on the enduring role of faith in a rapidly changing society. And joining me now this Christmas evening in our TVP World studio is Father Stanisław Tasiemski, the Vice President at the Catholic Information Agency. Father, so glad to have you here on Christmas Day.
Thank you for the invitation.
On Christmas Day with us, absolutely, and a blessing. Father, you're a Polish Catholic priest and, of course, part of a Dominican friar based in Warsaw. I think what I've seen here in Poland was very nice at the Dominican church compared to other Catholic churches is the way that Mass is conducted, particularly in the evening. Candle lights dim. There's one church, Dominican church in Mokotów. I find that quite symbolic. But speaking of symbolism, from your perspective, do you think that spirituality without religious community, is spirituality without a religious community enough, or does faith need structure and tradition to actually move forward and to grow?
The true faith is grounded in the roots of tradition. So it is important to transmit tradition, faith, especially in the families. It helps us in our way of faith. We are celebrating God who became man, who took flesh, human flesh, and human nature. It means that also we need a festival, I mean spiritual festival, as well as feast, in the way of celebrating with all ourselves. Surely celebration is just short time. We gathered last night on midnight mass. Earlier we prepared nearly the whole mass month on Rate mass, morning mass. Many people came. We may say there are two monasteries, Dominican monasteries here in Warsaw, in Mokotów you spoke about, but also in an old town, the old monastery which dates from the beginnings of 17th century. So we also notice that people are coming across Warsaw to celebrate together. And they love also to be in the old town where the whole history is very present. Surely it is also human life is rooted in history, as well as you want to know how our parents, grandparents celebrated Christmas. So we just try to transmit this tradition to new generation.
Do you think that, speaking of the new generation, I absolutely agree with you when you say you want to give into those traditions and for our children and our grandchildren and so on. Do you think that the true meaning of Christmas has changed throughout the years, especially now where modern society still knows how to receive Christmas for what it should be? I mean, we live in such a world now, for instance, where screens are taking over, right? It's becoming such a rapid place.
Surely Christmas means also to share with those who are in need. And perhaps in last years, we noticed that just before Christmas or during Christmas, we have this tradition to leave one place around the table for the host who will arrive. And so spiritually, this work of welcoming people who are homeless, who are alone, sick, it is also very important. We know that in these days, for instance, in Poznań, there were 1,500 people lonely. Those people who live perhaps a bit on the margins of society were hosted on the terrain of international affair. So it is one of the images. Surely time changes. Surely people have many problems and doubts. Surely what you said about is that we are witnessing laicization of society. We also witness that it is difficult to give the whole tradition to new generation. But surely if there are moments when the tradition is weaker, also the question arises, nevertheless, human nature is very hungry of meaning of her own life, what my life is for, where I find a real hope. And just in the universal church, we are nearly at the end of Jubilee of Hope. So it was for those who were intending or open to listen to the messages, especially from the Holy See, from the Pope, Pope Francis, now Pope Leo. It is a message of hope, also showing that human life has a deeper sense than only to gather things. It means that also it is important to exist, not only to collect.
Father, you spoke to us a little bit just earlier about the Polish traditions, right? About an empty chair, right? But also, let's remember, you also spoke about the midnight mass. There's also in Polish tradition the breaking of the opłatek. Which of these Polish traditions do you think carries the most spiritual weight today, and which do you think are going to risk simply becoming sentimental?
It is not an easy question. Surely we may say that there are some people who are escaping all the atmosphere of Christmas, who are going to ski somewhere here in Poland, or who are spending Christmas time abroad in the Alps. Perhaps it is also good how to mix tradition and relax. It is their own question. But surely the question is, if a human being has a relationships towards the earlier generations, they are able to read what, for instance, their grandparents wrote about, spoke about, or their grandparents. So it is also important for our own identity. What is essential? Surely opłatek, so a wafer which is not consecrated, but also as a symbol of sharing, is very moving, very important. It is why it is not only celebrated during the Easter Vigil, but also it is celebrated during the whole Christmas period. I mean, sometimes even up to the 2nd of February, because traditionally people were used to sing Christmas carols to the 2nd of February, to feast of revelation of offering of Christ in temple. So, and
it's also the day that many Catholics, do correct me if I'm wrong, would take off the Christmas tree, right? Was on the 1st of February, right?
Yes. So it is also.
I do remember that. I do remember at one point living in Canada, and we would keep, a lot of my friends would take their trees off early January, and we would keep it on until February. And they'd be like, "Hey, why are you keeping it on until February?" And I was like, "Well, it's a long story to have to explain it to you." But Father, let me ask you also this: how do you think that Catholics today, and you as a priest, are responding to the rise of secularism? And just to understand this youth also is, it's a little bit of belief, it's a little bit of the daily lives that we live in. And let's be honest, as I mentioned earlier, we've been living through wars and through quite a chaotic year in times. How do you respond to this?
Surely there is perhaps the most important is to listen. It is not the case that in this time Pope Francis, now Pope Leo, is continuing the process of synodal church which is speaking, which is listening, which is trying to also find answers, but it is mostly on the personal level. I need to listen to a concrete person, to her or his questions. It is very important. It needs patience. There are different tides in human history, and we know that to find a deep reasons for faith, for hope, needs also certain maturity. It is true that people very often feel alone. I mean, our technological world, people are used to stay, perhaps also in our communities. If we were used to, for instance, to stay a bit together at table. Very often nowadays, we spend a lot of time in front of our computer, personal computer, but also it happens in families. People are watching more their computer or their phone than to their faces. It is very important to find that look to the face, to the eyes of another person.
Essentially hope. Father, and just before we end this interview, because we're almost out of time, what message do you want to share to our viewers this Christmas day?
We know that we are living in a very stormy times. When comes Prince of Peace, King of Peace, he's bringing to us our inner peace. I mean, also among tragedies, among solitude, God is open to us. He's waiting for us. He's welcoming us. He wants to be among us. Let's open our doors, our gates to Christ who is coming.
Thank you so much, Father Stanisław, for being with us here on TVP World here this Christmas. And thank you there back home for watching this edition of World News Tonight. I'm Diana Skaya, and we wish you here from all of us at TVP World a very Merry Christmas to you and your loved ones.